Hey there.
Hey,
How are you? Wow.
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. Wow, you're more beautiful and I was gonna say in person, but doesn't quite apply, does it?
It's just the lighting. It's just the lighting.
Good lighting, good lighting, good lighting's key. Well, yeah, I've done a ton of research on you and really excited to dive in. Thank you so much for being on the show today and getting into it with us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I guess I'll start. There's so many different aspects of your your life, your personality, different things that have happened, highs, lows. Rather than me dictate the direction, I thought maybe I'd ask you what you would like to kind of discuss or anything super passionate that you're into. I'm sure you're familiar with what we do here. There's the gist is these main areas of everybody's life that people tend to either just focus on maybe one at a time or ignore all of them. It's your mindset, your relationship, your career and your finances, your physical health, and then your emotional health and giving back to the world side. Is there any core in particular that resonates with you that you would like to discuss and get into or that you maybe are transitioning at this point in your life or had in the past?
I think the main thing that I'm trying to focus on at this point in my life is really finding a good balance and trying to really remain present in what it is that I'm working on and what I'm doing and what I'm experiencing. So I just traveled a lot this summer, maybe OD making up for being in the house
Right.
all last
Yep.
year. Yeah, but I've been in LA for 5.5 years now. So I spent most of the summer, the weekends, obviously I do the show during the week, but most of the summer on the road and really like getting a chance to see family and seeing some new places and getting to spend time with friends and people that I didn't really get to see a lot last year with everything that was going on. And now I'm entering into the busiest part of the year for us in sports, which is football season, and everybody kind of hunkers down for the next 5 or 6 months and really digs in on the NFL and college football, and then we'll have baseball playoffs coming up, and the basketball season will start again. So this is a very busy time, and I think in the past in my career, I've kind of just went through things without really taking the time to experience them wholly. And I made an effort to do that at the Super Bowl, not this past year, but before COVID in Miami, to really just like experience everything that was happening in the moment. It made the whole experience really enriching for me and more of a memory than some of the really amazing things that I've been able to do in my career, because I was just like focusing on just getting through it and like the stress of it and making sure everything's perfect rather than just kind of experiencing it. So that's something that I really want to work on going into this football season, is really enjoying all the work fully and not stressing out about working every day.
So isn't that right? The human dynamic, the way our brains work, it's this catch-22 where it's like we're constantly thinking about how we can elevate our lives and get to the next level, whether it's relationships, finance, career, but then we tend to, no matter how much success we get, we tend to stress and dwell on, okay, what's the next thing I need to do? Okay, I got here, great, but now I need to get here, right? And so that stopping to smell the roses part is something that it's not just you. I mean, I think it's the vast majority of people. And if you're not mindful of actually being like, okay, wait a minute now. And I think COVID helped a lot of people to do that, fortunately. That was one of the good things that came out of it, is sort of forced to take to step out of the slipstream that you're in and sort of say, whoa, what's going on with my life? Like, have I talked to my family members? Have I, been working out, whatever it is, and sort of say, what's up? And you mentioned at the very beginning, balance, how important it is. And I mean, that's it. Like every one of us has this sort of need to make sure that, I call it firing on all cylinders, these 5 different core areas, your relationships, your mindset, your career and finances, your physical health, your giving back, emotional health. Like you can't just have one. You have to be truly happy. You've got to have really all of them, and you have to at least be taking steps and moving in the right direction. And unfortunately, I think most people tend to focus on, especially the financial one, right? And they think that that's going to bring them happiness, and then they get it, and it's like, oh man, that didn't work. So then they just keep chasing, and then they keep chasing. And I think that's one of the top regrets of people on their deathbed is, I wish I'd just enjoyed my life a little bit more instead of stressed and dwelled about constantly trying to get to the next level.
Yeah, and I'm very guilty of that because that's kind of just how I'm wired. I'm always worried about, what's the next step and what's the next goal. And I've, it's not that I ever feel like I've not appreciated everything, but because I definitely live, that's for sure. Like I definitely try to, immerse myself in every experience. But yeah, I mean, we get, especially now, I think with social media and just, this microwave society that we live in, which is, in a lot of ways very good that we are able to communicate like this and meet new people and learn new things if we, choose to actually learn things. It makes you feel like you have to do everything right away, and like everyone else is doing more and better and making more money and doing bigger things. And I'm guilty of that. Like I have to take a step back sometimes. I'll see things and I'm like, I should be doing that, or I should be, TikToking, or I should be like doing something more than I'm doing.
Right.
And it's the poison of comparison, right? To like constantly be evaluating yourself against other people. But how do you not do that when you're on social media and, watching TV and everybody's doing all these spectacular things? So it kind of puts you sometimes into this overdrive where you don't feel like, even though you have accomplished your goals, or, you have done amazing things, that you sort of, judge yourself for what you haven't done. And, I think it's like a meme I've been seeing people post this past week where it's like, I'm going to completely butcher this, but it's basically like, think of how proud your past self would be of you now. I'm definitely not saying it properly, but like, that's the gist of it. Like 10 years ago, if you saw yourself now, would you be proud of what you're doing and proud of, what you've accomplished? And did you reach any of your goals? And, in the 10 years ago, would you admire who you are now? And not maybe all of your mistakes and things that have happened along the way, but just what you're doing right now, and keep, some sort of perspective on what it is you're doing, and, be happy with what it is you have while also being aspirational, which is back to like what I said originally, which is, trying to find some balance in that space, and not trying to be, to quote my co-host, which I think is very eloquent, not trying to be happier than happy. Like if you have what you need, you can always want more, but don't take for granted what you have now as well.
I love that. And yeah, I want to share something with you that it ties into that I kind of figured out along the way, and serendipitously, that's kind of helped me to sort of come to grips with what you just said, because at the end of the day, we're all going off of our primal DNA brains, right? So there's certain, like you said, like I think you mentioned at some point when you were speaking, like it's hard not to, it's hard, it's very hard not to. And if you're not like aware of what can bring you down and what can hurt you and what you should focus on versus the things that are, causing you to be unhappy versus things like you said, like, being grateful and being happy with, what you have. And I like that one you said. I mean, that's a good one. Everybody has kind of their own little way to remind themselves. And that's a good one of, would my 10 years ago self be proud of me? Right. And meanwhile, you're like you said, you're caught up in this, like, oh, did I do this? Or, am I posting enough? And it's like, what an awful way to live. I had, I wanted to tell you a story, but real quick, this thing I was just about to say, I discovered this app on Apple, like right when the iPhone came out, like way back in the day, right? Like 9-10 years ago. Crazy to think that it's only been that long, but, and there was the App Store was very small, and it said the meaning of life. And in the diagram, I actually keep it here for these types of conversations. It comes up. It's backwards, but it says we strive for more because we feel dissatisfied. We feel dissatisfied because we strive for more. Mm-hmm. And it's this never-ending loop. And at first I remember reading that and being like, well, that's depressing. Basically, I'm always going to want more because I feel dissatisfied. And I'm always going to be dissatisfied because I want more. Like, what am I, a rat on a hamster wheel? But then if you think about it in terms of like, it's just about ABG, always be growing. Like, to be happy as human beings, we need to be growing. And as long as you're doing that and you're like, okay, this is where I want to head, and you've got goals, just know that when you reach that goal, it ain't going to be as simple as sitting on the beach, drinking a pina colada, saying money ain't a thing for the rest of your life. It doesn't exist. Maybe right. For a week, But just like when I sold my company, that's exactly what happened. I mean, I spent 10 years of my life building this thing, and the actual payoff when we exited was very bittersweet. You know, there was loss and sadness that I wasn't expecting, and there was like, okay, now what the hell am I going to do with my life? Like, I took a couple weeks off and did play a lot of golf, got some massages, and was like, okay, this is nice. But then it was like, okay, now what? Right? And I think a lot of celebrities. I just interviewed Anna Lynn McCord the other day. I don't know if you know, she was on 90210. She was a Nip Tuck back in the day, one of my favorite shows. But anyways, she kind of went through that as well. And a lot of celebrities I've interviewed, I feel like there's no training camp for it. Like, but you go through the same thing, which is you get this success, and it's like, holy cow! 10 years ago, self would have been like, wow, that's freaking unbelievable that you're now on TV, you're on a radio show, millions of people listening to you. Yet you're not thinking in those terms, right? You're going, well, do people like me? You know, my last review was bad. Am I getting enough likes on my social media? Am I posting like you were saying? And what an awful way to go through life if you're not aware of the pitfalls of it.
Yeah, and we talk about it a lot as it relates to sports because we actually just talked about this yesterday because of what's happening with Naomi Osaka, and she didn't point specifically to social media as a reason for, you know, why she's dealing with, you know, what she's dealing with. But I do think that social media and the access that we have and the explosion of media in general because of the internet has sort of changed how we all live our lives and how we compare ourselves to each other in a really unprecedented way, which we didn't deal with, you know, growing up. To celebrities were like demigods, you know, we just like saw them on TV and magazines. Like you never like actually met. I grew up in Pittsburgh, you know, like meet a celebrity. Like I remember the first celebrity I met was Dave Wannstedt when he was coaching the Bears because I won like a art contest and got to go to Chicago with my aunt. And that was
that's where I am, by the way. I'm in Chicago right now.
Oh, you're in Chicago. I love Chicago. And it's not really like, I don't even know that it's just a celebrity thing. I think anything in life, you know, can be anything that you have a goal to accomplish, you know, get married or have kids or start a business or, you know, graduate from college, you know, any, you know, run a marathon, like any goal that you have for yourself. Once you achieve it, there is, you know, the beginning, the process, the end, which is you're talking about is sort of, you know, that weird like mourning phase where like you built this amazing thing and now it's accomplished and now it's over. What now? Like, what's the next thing? And I guess that's a part of being aspirational and being human is that you want to, like you said, always be growing. You want to be doing new things. You want to be experiencing new things. You want to be growing in new ways and accomplishing new things. And now, because we have all this comparison, it's like, what is enough for you? What's going to make you happy? And that's an important conversation you always have to have with yourself because obviously we all want money. Like we're all working. We need money to be like, that's part of being happy is being able to pay your bills and like, you know, do the things that you want to do. So to say that people don't work for money is just like, that's silly. We're all working for money, obviously. But what do you want to do that's going to sustainably make you happy and make you more money? Because really, if you're doing what you enjoy in some way, then you're going to make more money because you're going to work harder at it and pour yourself into it. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting time, especially with COVID, because we've probably had more time on the internet than we've ever had before, all collectively as a society. So
right, it expedited the inevitable, which was, you know, people were already social, and then social media just took itself to the next level. But the good thing about social media is, not to toot my own horn, but shows like this, right? It's not all crap. It's not
we've
just sucking your soul.
Like, we might have never ever met if not for social media, and like it's opened a whole new world of information, of accountability, of movements, and you know, I think with anything there's good and bad. You know, it's the yin and yang of life, and you know, we all just adjust as humans to whatever's new and figure out how we're gonna, you know, apply it to our lives and manage it in that way.
Well said. I like that. Yeah, and kind of going back to what you were saying before, I want to touch on this because this is something that I hear people say a lot, and I think it's important to distinguish the difference. So you mentioned, you know, of course we all want money, we work for money, it's part of happiness. So that's, you know, finances is one of your cores. Well, it's 50% of your career in finances because part of what I always say is if you're not happy doing what you're doing, it doesn't matter how much money you make, right? If your whole life you're miserable doing what you're doing and you're making a lot of money, it's like, what's the point, right? But the actual financial part itself, right? I'm not one of these people that goes around and says, it's not about money. Like, right. And I think people hear that and then they get turned off. But what I would say is when I had a financial goal that when I hit it, like I was saying, when I sold my company and far surpassed what I like that 10-year previous version of myself thing you said, like way past what, when I first started my company, I thought I could ever, get from it. And then it felt great for a minute, but I realized it's that little equation thing I just showed you, that never ending loop, which is, okay, now what? Always be growing. What's the next step? And if your next step is like, okay, now I was able to financially get to this level, you know what? I'd like to be able to have a jet to be able to cruise around. And, that's freaking great. That's fine. Right. Like there's no shame in that. Like, but the point is you just have to have a goal and be working towards it. But at the same time, understanding that those 4 other areas, your relationships and your physical health and your mindset and all those aren't suffering because of it. And it's just a tunnel vision trying to make as much money as possible, because you will not be happy in that regard if you're not balancing.
No,
would you agree with that?
I would, yeah, definitely agree with that. And it's like, whenever you talk about money is such a touchy subject for everybody, obviously, because most people want to make more money. And, there's always like this directive of, well, how do I make more money, but do what I want to, like follow my dreams, but, my dreams aren't working and I'm not making money following my dreams. And one thing that really worked for me when I started in the business was knowing exactly what I wanted to do. Like exactly what, but not the money part, but like exactly what I wanted to do. And that's a question that I always ask young people in my business when they ask, like, what direction should I go in? Or like, should I do this internship or should I do that? And I always ask them, like, what is it that you want to do? Like, what's the job you want? What's the career you want? Do you want to be a reporter? Do you want to be a college football analyst? Do you want to be a radio host? Do you want to be a entertainment host? Do you want to be a writer? Do you want to be a beat reporter? Do you want to do play-by-play? Do you want to do like there's so many different jobs and things you can do in this business, and you can make great money at all of them and have a great career at all of them. But they're all very different, and they all have very different paths and things you should be doing if that's what your goal is. So, like, if you want to be a doctor, it's pretty simple. Like, it's not simple to become a doctor, but the path is very much lined up for you. Like, you have to go to medical school. That's the thing you have to do. Then you have to do, I'm not a doctor, so whatever you have to do after medical school, you go, to the next level, and then eventually you become, a resident and all those things. Like, we know what you have to do if you're a doctor. A lawyer, same thing. A teacher, a professor. Like, there's a path that's quite traditional for those things. Now, to become the greatest of those, obviously, you might get a little outside of the box, but there are roadblocks and things and building blocks to becoming that. Where when you're in a more creative business or a business that's not as traditional like media, like you could be a writer. Skip Bayless was a writer, and then he was a radio host, and now he's on television. Like, there's a million different paths to get there. Shannon Sharp played football, and then he was a football analyst, and now he's on the show. Like, 2 completely different paths, but they knew what they wanted to do at the end of those things. So I always knew I wanted to be a personality. So the decisions that I made in my career, when I was young in my career, the internships that I took, the mentors that I worked with, all kind of led me in a path to where I am now. Now, it wasn't perfect, and I certainly got off track and here and there and made, not all perfect decisions. But when you have a goal in mind, like, I want to do this specifically, it accelerates your success, and it will accelerate your money as well, because you'll be working towards things that are building on that, as opposed to, oh, this opportunity popped up, let me do this. And, oh, this came up and this is kind of interesting. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think people sometimes are like, I want to be successful. And it's like, successful at what? Like, you just want to be a successful person, but you don't have a thing you want to be successful at. So how can you ever get there if you don't know what it is you want to be successful at?
Well, I appreciate you bringing up goals. Goals are these things that, don't get me started on my soapbox of the educational system in our country. And I mean, around the world, although it's better, some countries better than others, like goals, every person that I've interviewed, such as yourself, that's gotten to a certain level that they set out to get to has incorporated goals in some way. Like you said, like just saying, I want to be successful, that there's not enough connection there with your brain. Your why isn't being connected, and because you're just gonna be distracted and all the things jumping out at you. Oh, I should do this, I should try this. But you got to get specific and be like, okay, like I want to be a personality on
You have to
like that's what I want to do. And then you get specific about it, and then and I don't know how you did it, if you had them written or if it was just in your head. And honestly, I've seen both work. I think I definitely preach written, because I think written, especially when they're like in front of you and you sit down every day at your workstation or whatever, and you're reviewing them and say, okay, this is where I need to get, and it forces you to hold yourself accountable. And then along the way, there's going to be dips, pivots, obstacles, right? You're going to get whacked across the face. You're going to have successes, failures. But the key is, as long as you know, like, this is where I want to get, and I know I have it in me, you just keep taking those steps. And the law of compounding is one of my favorite laws on the planet, because things don't happen overnight, right? Everybody thinks it happens overnight. I'm guessing that your path to success didn't happen overnight. Like one day you didn't wake up and go, I want to be a radio personality, and then the next week you got a job offer. Am I right?
No, everyone accuses me of that.
Of course. Because it's easy. It makes them feel better. It makes them feel better. Like, oh, she's so lucky. She just got.
I try not to be too harsh with people. In general, I'm known as being a clapback queen. I don't have a huge tolerance for disrespect, but I do think that it is important to know what someone's journey is, because you're absolutely right. Like, every overnight success was 10 years in the making. It's just like that's what becoming, that's what reaching a goal is. Like, nothing just happens, and there is this idea that even things that happen quickly now, like TikTok fame and stuff like that, like, not to diminish it, but like they got to do those things. Like, they have to make those YouTube videos. They have to put that effort and that time in to build those things. So you're right, nothing happens overnight, and things are gonna change along the way and push you off your path. But I do agree with the specific thing. And just as a side note, before I tell you the story, you're like the 10th person that's mentioned to me about writing things down, and I have like all these empty journals over here, and so like it's like the universe is like screaming at me to start writing stuff down. So I'm gonna start.
Really, I hope I can be part of that. I hope like the 10th is the magic number.
Yeah, it's enough. I the message received. So I'm gonna start today. But no, a big turning point. I tell this story a lot, but a big turning point for me in my life was after college, kind of similar to what a lot of people are dealing with right now with COVID, and getting hired and starting their careers. Weirdly, when I graduated from school, the media business, specifically radio, was in a big transition, because a major company in the business had fired a big portion of their work base, and it kind of froze the rest of the business. All the smaller companies just kind of put on hiring freezes. They weren't really sure, like, what's happening. And that was right as I was graduating from college. So all of the eggs that I put in this basket for this job I was supposed to get is now like off the table. And I'm like floating around confused. And it really threw me off my path for about a year and a half. And I was in a bad space with my family. I was coming out of a horrific relationship. I really didn't have any money. I had like my car, and I was sleeping on my friend's couch. I didn't have a job of any sort, like not any kind of hustle, nothing, like just jobless. I was talking to
Sorry, how long ago was this?
This was, I don't know, eons ago. So let's call it 2011. Yeah, so eons ago. Yes, so 10 years ago, this person would admire me now, I guess. So I'm talking to a very successful friend of mine, and I'm bitching and complaining about everything that's happening, and it's not how it's, it's none of it's my fault, whatever going on and on.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of stops me like mid rants and is like, let me just like stop talking for a second. Let me ask you a question. What's something you want for yourself in the next 3 years? It can be anything. It can be like a man, it can be a car, it can be a house, it can be a job, like whatever. a bag, like what's something you want for yourself in the next 3 years, right? Specific to what you mentioned earlier. And I was like, well, I want to be full-time on air in radio or TV in the next 3 years. And he was like, great. How much of your energy are you putting towards making that happen? And I thought, I didn't answer right away. I kind of thought about what he said. And I was like, it's an interesting word, energy, right? It wasn't time, it wasn't money, it wasn't attention, it was energy. And I was like, well, I mean, if I had to put it, like maybe 10%, like I don't have a job. I have a bunch of bills to pay. I'm sleeping on my friend's couch, the same couch I gave her a year before because she was in a bad space. Like my family's not talking to me, like I'm not in a good space, maybe 10%. And he was like, well, why are you surprised that it's not happening for you and that nothing is happening?
You were very fortunate to come along, to come across somebody like that, because that's fantastic advice.
No, it honestly changed my life. And I thanked him 4 years later for saying that to me, because I don't know if it was because I was in that space, because honestly, I was not a huge advice taker up until that point in my life, but it changed my whole perspective. It was just like a light bulb moment. And I was like, of course, I've been an athlete growing up. I've seen people be successful, and it takes all of your energy. By energy, it sounds like this like loopy doopy concept, but it's really not. It's just, you wake up every day with this goal in mind, like with taking one step closer to this goal. Right. And are you doing it? It's the same as working out. Like if you want to get in shape, you got to work out. You got to eat good. You got to drink some water. Right. Like we all try to find ways around it, but at the end of the day, that's just what it is. And we all try to fight it. I'm 100% guilty of it. But that's energy. Like the energy is, you have to eat right, and you have to get your sleep, and you have to take your vitamins, and you have to drink your water, and then you have to work out. Like that's what's going to make you healthier and get you in shape. And there's no skipping around it, right? Like maybe for a little bit you can do a crash diet, but it's going to come back. Like there's no skipping the steps. And that conversation just put me on a whole, it like changed my entire path for what I was doing. And within a month, my whole life was different. Like everything had been fixed and aligned because I put all of my energy into like working on that and making that happen. And here I am in LA 10 years later. But, and it wasn't a perfect path here. And there was certainly lots of things that happened along the way. But if you keep in mind what it is that you want to do, whatever it is that you want to do, and put your energy towards it, it just can't not come to you. Like that's just, it sounds very like sage and sparkles, but like it's just, I really like to study the greats, right? I like to study what the greats of whatever in our history have done. Muhammad Ali, Beyonce, Denzel Washington, like just Oprah, Howard Stern, people that have just accomplished these incredible things in their lifetime. If you pay attention to it, it's all the same. It's just the same mantra. It's like consistency. You are what you habitually do. And it's really simple. It's just a bunch of different cliches thrown your way, and whatever one sticks to you, just hold on to that one and ride into the sunset.
Oh my God. So yeah, I mean, it's becoming clearer and clearer as we're talking why, you got where you are. And I hope people are listening and paying attention. A couple big takeaways I took from all that. You said that, and I feel like it's very common because people did it to me too. And I remember it used to make me so mad where it's like, oh, you got so lucky. Like, so the business I sold was a restaurant delivery service, like a Grubhub or a Uber Eats or a DoorDash type thing. And we started like way before any of those guys were open. And I remember when we opened up and we started to have some traction, and then we started to open up in other cities, and people going, oh man, you're so lucky. I had that idea, and you're so lucky that you actually did it. And I remember thinking, fucking, there's no luck involved. Like you had the idea just like a zillion other people did. And I just put my head down and said, I'm doing this because I believe in it. And I know that this can be something like people need for, this is right when the iPhone came out. Speaking of, throwbacks eons ago, just right when the iPhone had come out, and I was like, wait a minute, our drivers, like, and at the time there was like little telephone takeout type places was like the best you could expect, right? And it was pizza and Chinese were really the only things you could get delivered. And it's crazy to think about this because now when you live in this world, I mean, there's a zillion choices, and now, I mean, you can even get, I just saw this new company, Stay Puff, came about, you can get like a Twinkie delivered from freaking someone. I don't know how they're making it. To me, a big part of it, and you kind of alluded to it, but I think it's important we shine a spotlight on it, is like combining your passions with your strengths is a huge part of it. Huge, right? Because it goes to what you were saying, like, I want to be a personality. And I think obviously you were good at it. You knew you had it in you. And you were mentioning, I don't know what it is. Like, it's like this thing when you get this thing, you just know you're going to get there. I think Napoleon Hill described it as a desire backed by faith, where it's basically your brain goes, all right, like, this is what I want to do. I know I've got it in me. I know I do. Like, I know I have in me to make this happen. And then combining it with like your passions of like, I really, really want to do this. And then advice I always give is sort of look at where the market is, look at where the world is, right? Like, don't try to copycat somebody, but where's it going to be in 2 to 5 years? Where's it heading? Which is kind of like how we did for doorstep delivery, and then it's like, okay, I am going to just put my head down and nothing's going to stop me. And there is this magical thing that happens where if you truly believe in yourself and you really, really are passionate about it and you have it in you and you're like, this is going to be something. And for you, it's a little bit different. It wasn't like you came up with a business idea, but you knew your strengths and your passions and you put them together and nothing was going to stop you. And just like what you were saying before, like people just don't get that, right? Even these TikTok stars, like if you go viral, you still got to keep the people interested, right? Like, especially nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Attention span's less than that snap, right? I mean, it's like going down and down. I mean, I was doing like a 1-minute video the other day and I was like, my God, this is like, nobody's going to watch this, right? And I remember like just a year ago, it was like, oh, if I could just get my videos down to a minute.
Yes.
So people will watch them. I mean, now, it's that attention span and you got to have it and you got to have something fresh every time. And the people that are able to maintain that, and you look at some of their pay, TikTok is fascinating to me because it's the ones that actually continue to build and grow. They're not one-offers. Yeah, they're going to fail sometimes, but they just keep taking the actions. Like you're saying, they keep putting the energy into it. And they're like, I know I've got it in me, and they're just going to keep experimenting and trying different videos until the next one hits. And I notice I'll go through people's profiles because I'm really interested in this right now. And you'll see like, there'll be like a string of 5 or 10 videos that hardly did anything, right? And then all of a sudden one hits and it's like 1.2 million viewers and it's like boom and a million, all these comments. And it's just that trial and error of just continuing to put energy, just like you're saying, versus like, okay, I want to be here in 3 years. The victim in me is going to go, well, why can't I have it? Why does that person have it and not me? And the owner's going to go, all right, I got to get to work here. Like, what do I need to do to make it?
That's a rewiring of your brain. It takes a bit of like stepping away from yourself because especially when you're young. When I was younger, I'm like, please, I'm better than that person at that, and I could totally do that. And it's it's that like unbridled confidence that you have in yourself, which is great. And then as you get older and you get told no a couple times and you fail a couple times, it kind of gets
right.
lower a little bit. You get that first wrinkle, gray hair, and you start getting discouraged and you lose that like youthful, zealous, brunt confidence in yourself. But the idea that you're always ready for everything is great, but harness that with your education and your skills. Like I have no problem saying when I first started this business, there is 0% chance I could do my job now. 0, none. I would completely fail. It would be a disaster. I would embarrass myself and I would not get another opportunity. So I always say, be ready for the opportunity that you want. Like prepare yourself. Don't be ashamed to take, side hustles. Don't be ashamed to, I bartended, I waitressed, I worked like 10 jobs. I covered youth sports, interviewing, 6-year-olds after their track meet. I did freelance work forever, covered high school sports, whatever, like anything that was like a tiny little brick in building, like I was willing to do. And I do think you need a little luck. You need a little magic. You need a kingmaker or queen maker along the way, someone to believe in you and give you an opportunity and give you that first step and get you in the door. I think it's okay to also ask for help too, which can sometimes feel very humiliating or humbling. But the reality is nobody ever gets anywhere without help, whether it's your parents, whether it's your friends, whether it's a mentor, whether it's your neighbor, whether it's just, your community supporting you when you start your business or, your friends wearing your clothes on social media or whatever it is. I think the biggest thing that you have to rewire is what you mentioned is why does like this person have this and I don't? And rather than thinking like that, think why haven't I reached my goals yet?
What can I do to get there?
What can I do to reach my goals?
Right.
Don't worry about what this other person is doing, because maybe that person did start, maybe they did have, trust funds or whatever. So they were able to start that business and they're a little bit further ahead of you. Or maybe they didn't. Maybe they just started working on it 10 years ago and you didn't know. And now they're just now hitting. So they, are a little bit ahead of you, if that's even a thing. But focusing on what you can do for yourself is really important. And I think, like, not to make it a gender thing, but for women specifically, because I'll speak to, what my experiences are, it can be very difficult to not constantly compare yourselves to other people. Like, it's just difficult. Like, oh my God, she looks amazing. Well, yeah, she's been, on a strict diet for 3 months and like been working out with a private trainer. Like, she should look like that. Great, good for her. But what were you doing last week? Well, I sat around and ate pizza and burgers all last week, which is exactly what I did. So, I shouldn't look like that. That's not how it works. And that's just like a small thing, but just scale it up to everything else that you're doing in life. Comparison will steal your joy. There's no value in it. It's not helping you. Inspiration is important, but comparison is a disease. If you have someone that you're inspired by and you see what they're doing and you say, that's a good idea, I like how they're doing that, I'll try and see if that works for me, or I want to accomplish this, they've done such an amazing job with that, I want to try and do that too, or do something bigger than them. That's important to have. I think it's important to have people that inspire you or motivate you, but you can't compare yourself to them because everyone has a completely different journey and you don't know what they're going through. You don't know. You know what people put out or what people tell you, but you don't know what people's experiences are. You don't know what they've overcome or what they haven't overcome. So what's the point? It's just taking energy and time and effort away from you applying yourself to what you want. So there's no value in comparison.
Oh my God, preach it. I love I just wrote that down. Comparison will steal your joy. Quote by Joy Taylor.
I don't know if I can be credited that quote, but it is true. Like
you said it. I'm gonna Google it. You know what? You heard probably a variation of it at some point. And those are your words. That came out naturally.
Yeah.
So, but that's so friggin' true. And we, especially in this day and age, like we were talking about, like with social media and just so many things to look at, and it's so easy to go, why can't I have that? That person looks like this. I love some of these people. I don't know if you've seen some of these where like these people are like, you know what? I'm going to show you what I can look like if I contort my body in a certain way and have a certain angle and like mess with the filter. And then this is literally taken 5 seconds later. And then, they'll like stick out their belly and you're just like to me, that's just the biggest spotlight on how manipulative it can be, social media. And if you're just comparing yourself against somebody that's using filters and lighting and who knows, Photoshop, like you're never ever going to have your own joy. It's figure out what is it deep down in me that lights my fire. It gives me that thrill. And now start taking those actions, just kind of bringing back into that other conversation we were talking about. Like, it's not going to happen overnight. Like, it's so hard for people. Every day, we're living in an instant generation. I mean, I was part of that. I was part of the front that brought in food delivery where you could get anything you want delivered in 30 minutes, right?
That's your fault. It's your fault.
I take total responsibility. And, it's like the great Stan Lee once said. Are you familiar with Stan Lee? Okay, good. Great late Stan Lee. Yeah. With great power, there must also come great responsibility. And unfortunately, these social media have you watched, by the way, The Social Dilemma on Netflix?
I haven't because my sister said she watched it and deleted all of her accounts. So I'm like, I probably shouldn't watch because I can't delete any of my accounts. But
okay,
I've heard a lot.
I love that. You know what? I didn't get that from. I can see why she did that. But what I actually inspired by it and said, wow, okay, I'm going to really do my best to put out the message because, I mean, obviously you're a bigger name than me. You have even more followers, but people look at you. They listen to what you say. And so it's like really being mindful of the words you're choosing and the things you're saying because people are looking at you as a role model and they're looking up to you. And, these social media companies, I mean, the gist of it is, these companies have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders, not to your happiness. So they just want to get you as hooked as possible on their product, right? And unfortunately, that's meaning teen suicide is at an all-time high, especially for females. People are becoming less happy. I mean, it's proven, you know, like you can literally like look at the year that like social media came out, and like starting with like, remember MySpace back in the day? Or
Oh yeah,
MySpace
had
you know,
like,
wasn't that been
MySpace had all of us acting like coders, putting in
right?
our like
Oh my God.
HTML codes and our music.
If I could bring my MySpace page back, let me just tell you something. I had the best background music, okay?
Oh.
And I had all the pictures, and I spent so much time on it. And I swear, like, as soon as I finished it, they're like, okay, nobody does this anymore. It's Facebook. I was like, what's Facebook?
Yeah.
I was like, I can't put my music on.
Facebook came out my freshman year of college. So I was like, I'm like an original Facebooker.
Wow. Yeah, you were right in the mix in, right? And so, right, and that is something that, you know, even if they want to use it for good, like, unless they can figure out a way to make more money that way, they're not going to do it. And it's really kind of sad, but it's up to us to not just be sheep and to not just fall into that. And, you know, in the movie, they actually use an example of a guy who's like, he breaks up with his girlfriend, and then he's like kind of scrolling through social media. And then all of a sudden he sees, you know, this all kind of alternative group that's kind of like violent. And he's like, yeah, what's this? And he clicks on it. And then the social media saw that he clicked on it and started showing him more of that type of stuff. And then all of a sudden he's getting gun ads, right? And then he's clicking on the gun, and then he's buying a gun, and now he's at a rally, and now he's about to fucking shoot somebody. And it's not that far-fetched. That's exactly what happens, you know? And these things are paying attention to what we're clicking on. And if we're clicking on something that isn't good for us, then we're only going to see more of that, and it's only going to perpetuate that even more so. It's very sad. So people like you, me, it's so important to put out that message and use these types of platforms for good, because you can use them for them. And that's why when I saw that, I was like, all right, it's on. Like, I am going to gamify this world with happiness. I'm going to figure out how to trick people's brains into like, and this whole edutainment, I'm a big fan of the word edutainment, right? Where it's like, you're having fun, which is like we are now. We're having a good chat. People are hopefully enjoying it that are watching. There's gonna be more people watching it when I put them on podcasts and we put clips. But they're getting a little lesson at the same time, right? It's not preachy. We're not like, okay, this is what you should do, because nobody responds to that, right? It has to be presented in a way that almost tricks your brain to going, aha. And like you mentioned earlier, everybody's brain works differently, and there's gonna be certain things that click. Like for you, it was you had that conversation with that guy. And it was the 3-year self, what energy are you putting into that? And it like went boom, right? And so you never know what's going to click with people. So you just got to keep putting that stuff out in the universe, and hopefully it does click with somebody, and then they pay it forward to somebody else.
Yeah. And it's like, I just think the biggest thing is finding what works for you. Like that's what works for me. Maybe it was the time in my life. Maybe it was everything that happened. Maybe it was how he delivered it. Who knows? But something's going to work for you, whatever it is. If you find a quote page on Instagram and, you know, something hits you, or you have, you know, a conversation with your grandmother, or you're watching this, or whatever it is. But just whatever you find that keeps you on that path, that keep you true to yourself is the most important thing. And everything is different for everybody, because everybody is different. But yeah, I think social media is interesting, especially like for my business in sports. You know, it's sports fans, me being one of them. We're not the most eloquent with our our takes and our reactions and interactions with each other. Sometimes, you know, we're very
well. I challenge you to, you know, like try to slip some of that stuff in there. You know, and it's going to be really hard, because it's easy. The low hanging fruit. And sorry to interrupt you, by the way, Joy.
No.
But it just made me think of like, because that's what I do with myself. I play little games. Again, like I'm all about gamification. Like, how can I trick my little gerbil brain into doing the right things, right? And it's like, it's so easy to grab the low hanging fruit and to, you know, to the joke that's whatever, you know, going to knock somebody down or going to hurt somebody's feelings, or isn't really going to help spread any goodness throughout the universe. But, you know, challenging yourself to sort of do that, just like, I guess you can kind of compare it to like a clean comedian. They say it's like way harder to be a clean comedian, right? Because it's like everybody likes the F you, you know, the fucking shit. And, I mean, Eddie Murphy, Raw and Delirious are two of the funniest things I've ever seen on the planet. I mean, it doesn't get funnier than that, right? But it wasn't just dirty; it was brilliant. And you know, he used the, you know, some of the potty words and stuff to accentuate it, but he did it in a clean, clever way. There's another guy that just he had his vision and he just went. And so, anyways, we're kind of getting off track here, but I want to thank you, and I like to kind of wrap up the show. You've been on for about an hour now. I like to ask kind of, what is it that you feel in your life at the end of the day, now that you know, let's go back to that 10-year ago self and yourself today. What habit do you feel, because habits are kind of everything to me. I feel like we run on autopilot, and again, going into those 5 core areas I mentioned, you really kind of say, all right, shine a spotlight. What are the habits I have in each of these areas? What are the failure habits I need to eliminate that are hurting me, that are going to, like we were saying earlier, compound over time? And, you know, I don't floss my teeth and brush them every day. It's not a big deal now, but 10 years from now, your teeth are going to be on, right? Type of thing. So what is a habit that you feel you've developed? And I don't care what core, just one habit that you didn't have back then that you now have that you feel has really helped propel you to where you are.
I think I learned how to forgive myself. And I think that's, for me, that was a really hard thing to do. I'm still working on the boundary thing. I have terrible boundaries, and working on that. But as far as that's my next big heal. But I think forgiving yourself is very important, because you're going to make mistakes, and some of them are going to be really bad mistakes. And sometimes you're going to hurt other people, or sometimes you're going to hurt yourself, or sometimes you're going to do things that you told yourself you would never do again, and it's going to set you back or put you in a bad spot. And spending, you know, I think it's okay to, you know, be sad, and it's okay to, you know, deal with yourself when you do make those mistakes. But it's also really important to forgive yourself and let that go and move forward. And don't let the anxiety of your mistakes keep you from trying new things, or getting out there again, or taking another chance, because those things can really overwhelm you. And I don't like the idea of necessarily of no regrets, because then you're going to keep kind of making the same mistake. So you do have to have some sort of awareness of, let me learn from this. It's obviously easier said than done. I still make the same mistakes in certain areas, obviously, like anyone else. But forgiving yourself for mistakes, or forgiving yourself for past feelings or thoughts or decisions that maybe you didn't even think was a mistake at the time, that turned out to set you back or put you in a certain situation. It's really important, because I still have a lot of anxiety, but I really used to let my guilt for past mistakes allow other people to control me. Bad people, obviously, but still having that vulnerability of not forgiving myself opened myself up to more negativity, because those people saw that and were able to dig in on me because I hadn't forgiven myself for mistakes. And so that's something that I've definitely learned from, and it's helped me to grow as a person. It's helped me to grow as a friend, as a family member. I think it's helped me grow as a talent and a professional. And for me, it was a very hard thing to do, because I come from an abusive background. So I've come from being trained to think that everything I'm doing is wrong. And so I really had to reprogram my brain to say, like, you don't have to punish yourself for doing this. Like, you made a mistake. Okay. You made amends. Okay. Move on. Like, you don't have to still feel bad about this. So focusing on that and really applying that to my life has been very helpful in all areas. So the next step is boundaries. So
I love that. I love that that's your top habit, because it's so true. And one of the ways, I think a phrase that really clicked with me, like we were just talking about earlier, that I remind myself, and I actually have up here on my vision board, and I even have here written on my computer right in front of me where I see it. Failure is mandatory. Like, it's not, some people fail and some people succeed, and the people that make it, like, 50-50 actually fail. No, they all fail. They all fail. They all get kicked in the teeth. They all have their moments where they want to give up. And it's you go digging deep and going, okay, that sucked. I'm not saying jump up and down for joy and be like, yeah, that was awesome, because that's bullshit. Nobody's going to do that. Like, just take it in, be like, well, that one stung a little bit. Just like when you had your coming out of college and then they laid off everybody in the area you were going into. And it's like, whew, that sucks. Okay, but now, okay, if there's a lesson to be had, and sometimes there isn't a lesson, sometimes you just get kicked in the teeth, and it's like, but a lot of times you go, okay, and this is a way I like to help people to take it and use it versus to getting used by it, so to speak. So the victim in you would go, oh man, that sucked. Like, of course it happened. Things always happen to me. Like, I don't have it in me, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not pretty enough. Of course, blah, blah, blah. Versus the owner going, okay, that sucked, but how can I use that to help make me a bigger, better, faster, stronger, smarter, fucking bionic version of myself? And, how can I springboard off of this? And then just use that and learn from it, so you don't make that same mistake again. And to me, that's like 99% of life right there. It's like to just not be stuck in dwelling in the past and mistakes and failures and bad things that happen, but to actually use them and grow from them, so that you're going back to what we originally talked about, that always be growing, right? You can't grow without failures and mistakes. So they're mandatory. What would your growth owner self do? Is what you want to ask yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what is the saying? I'm throwing out a lot of cliches today. The difference between someone who's successful or the successful person and an unsuccessful person is that the successful person didn't give up. Because you're just like, I get told no all the time, constantly, right. All the time.
Right.
Like, I'm didn't get this job, didn't get this opportunity, didn't get this gig, whatever, like all the time, and it sucks. Like, yeah, it's discouraging, and it can make you rethink your entire career, but you just don't give up.
Don't give up. Desire backed by faith, going to good old Napoleon Hill. That's it. All right. Well, we got to talk about boundaries now. You can't just drop that. So tell me about boundaries and how that's your next thing you're working on.
I just, again, kind of how I grew up has instilled some high tolerance for, I guess, toxic behavior around me, and just like I'm very normalized to things that should not be normal to me. And I'm very forgiving of other people, and not in like, generally that's a good thing to be, but in a way that's like, I allow people to overstep the boundaries that I set for myself way too often. And I feel guilty about saying, no, like, this doesn't serve me, and I would not like you to not continue that behavior, and then like hold them to that. And instead it's like, okay, I just keep saying this, but I don't actually enforce that boundary. Whether it's like anxiety about losing that relationship, or losing that opportunity, or, losing that momentum, or whatever it is. But I have to get better myself at holding myself accountable for my boundaries, because I'm learning that you can't expect other people to uphold your boundaries. Like, people are just going to be themselves. They're going to do what they do. Even if they love you, even if they care about you, it's not necessarily their responsibility to constantly respect your boundaries. Now, if you've made it clear to them that this is a boundary and they continuously overstep it, then maybe they don't respect you or love you. But that's something that I am like working on personally, is really holding myself accountable to boundaries that I think are going to enrich me, or, serve me in a positive way, or comfort me, or heal me, and don't allow the fear of losing a relationship or a job or, anything from keeping these boundaries that I know will make me a healthier person.
Good for you. Yeah. Oh, I love that. So yeah, it's like kind of like having like, okay, these are mine. This is what's important to me. This is the line that I don't want crossed. And every time I let somebody cross over that, I'm dying a little bit inside more and more, and I'm becoming less happy. Right. Versus, and like you said, I like that word. I love that word, accountability. It's sort of like, okay, this is what it is, and this is my standard. And if I can't get this, you're going to make hard decisions. Sometimes you're going to have to say no, and you're going to hurt people's feelings. And but that's part of being a big girl and a big guy, a big boy, like in life. Like, you've got like being able to say no, and to know what you want, and to sort of be able to push the bullshit away of the things that are because there's going to be so many things trying to distract you and take you off that path, and that low-hanging fruit, like we were talking about earlier, is always going to be there. But if you stay true to yourself, eventually that law of compounding is going to kick in, and you're going to get there. So,
and you'll notice, or at least I've noticed, that like toxic people obviously don't love boundaries, and toxic situations, not necessarily people, but toxic situations don't do well with boundaries either, and negativity doesn't either. So it gives me anxiety to talk about it. So if you're a person that's not good with boundaries, then it is. It's very difficult. Like some people are very great with boundaries. Like, nope, not doing that, not happening. The end, next. Like they don't even think twice about it. And that's just not how I am. And so really enforcing that, and really, because at the end of the day, if someone truly does respect you, or if this is a situation that's really right for you, or if this is an opportunity that's meant for you, it will fall within those boundaries that you have. And a lot of times in our business too, like people can get into situations where like, oh my God, this is such a good opportunity, but I don't feel comfortable doing this, or I don't feel comfortable saying this, or I don't feel comfortable in this environment. It's outside of my boundaries, but am I willing to get outside of my boundaries because I feel like I need this? And the truth is you don't. Like you can be yourself, you can be true to yourself, and you can demand standards and boundaries for yourself. And if people will actually respect you more for saying, no, like I just don't feel comfortable with that. Like if it's okay, if it can't be changed, that's fine. Maybe this isn't for me, but that's not for me. And it's not arrogance, and it's not like being stuck up or anything. It's just that you know what you're comfortable with, and you know what you need and want and what serves you. And you should want that. Like you should want what's best for you.
Well, and the irony of the whole thing is more times than not, the other person you may end up getting exactly what you want, or at the very least, the other person's going to respect you, even if they don't act like they're respecting you and they act like they're mad. They're going to know that they can't get away with it next time, and that, okay, this is a person that has self-respect and knows what they want. Okay, I guess I can't pull my shenanigans on them, right?
Yeah, and it can be very hard in personal relationships, like especially family. I saw someone mention, like, how do you enforce boundaries with family? It's the same as anything else. Like family is probably kind of the hardest place to do it, because you feel an obligation to allow the people in your family to get away with things that you otherwise would never let anyone else get away with, because they're your family. And that can often lead to relationships completely deteriorating and sometimes never being repaired, because you don't have those hard conversations, and you don't say, like, you cannot do this. Like, you can't treat me this way. You cannot continue this behavior. Like, there's going to be consequences for this, because this is either harming me, or it's harming others, or it's harming our future, or it's harming you. And like, I won't participate in you harming you. And sometimes it's just a matter of, like, it all comes down to boundaries. Like, what are you willing to accept in your life as treatment or behavior or environments? And I know I'm simplifying things, and sometimes it's not that simple to just like cut someone off or leave or anything like that. But, you know, enforcing boundaries, however you have the capability of doing it, vitally important to, I think, everyone's happiness, because it's about respect at the end of the day.
That's right. And I mean, and just like bringing back to what we were saying earlier, just like in your career and having that desire backed by faith, and like being able to like say, okay, this is what I want, and I'm going to get there one day, and it's not going to happen overnight, but it's going to be a cumulative thing. It can go in the opposite if you don't have respect for yourself, if you don't have those boundaries, and you don't stand up for yourself and learn to say no. It'll just start diminishing your personal integrity, lower and lower and lower, and lowering your confidence, and and then you start questioning yourself, and because you're being run by other. Again, it goes back to that fixed victim, I call it, versus growth owner. You're being run by outside factors. Your life is being dictated by outside factors.
Yeah, and especially in the professional space, not just my business, I think in all professional spaces, you can be in a situation where you feel like, okay, if I say something, people are going to think I'm a diva, or people are going to think I'm a dick, or like, people are going to think I'm a bitch, or like I'm demanding too much, or I deserve too much for where I am in my position, or whatever. And like, the truth is, if you are demanding something that's reasonable, like, I don't know, respectful conversations, or, equal pay, or, like something that you deserve, like that is, you're not like asking for a corner office in your first week at the company.
Right. It's a good point too. Knowing, right.
Yeah. Like what you deserve, what you've earned. And that's important. And I learned that very early in my career, that like what you accept, people will give you. So like, there will always be someone waiting right there to just do what the last person did. If you don't say, no, that's not, we're not doing that today.
That's another great quote. Again, I'm sure you probably didn't make that one up.
I don't think I did.
What you accept, people will give you. I mean, that's so true, right? I mean, if you're a punching bag and people know they can get away with it, that's just human nature too. Going back to our primal brains, like we're greedy, we want more, we want to get stuff, we want to manipulate other people to give us what we want. And if somebody lets you do it, they're gonna do it.
Yeah, and it's not like, that's not a, like, I'm a little angel and I've never done that. Like, we all do that.
We all do it. We all do
it is in our nature to do that, which is why I'm saying, like, if you really establish boundaries in whatever area it is, it's your family, it's your relationship, it's your friends, it's work, it's your career, it's opportunities, it's whatever, dating, whatever it is. If you really establish boundaries, it's not about being manipulative. It's not about, being a diva or something. It's really about what's going to make you happy. And if you continuously compromise what's going to make you happy for someone else's happiness, you're not going to be happy, then they're not going to be happy, and you're just a big unhappy pie. And who wants unhappy pie? That sucks.
Nobody likes unhappy pie. I love me some pecan pie.
Exactly.
Pumpkin pie. Thanksgiving's coming up. Don't like
sweet
pie.
Potato, like a little strawberry pie.
Oh, strawberry pie. Oh my God. Nobody eats strawberry pie. My wife's grandmother makes it. It's delicious. And grape pie. You ever heard of grape pie? She makes grape pie. Who would have thought?
Grape pie?
Grape. I know. She's from the Midwest. Just don't ask. I mean, when I
would try it.
Good. I mean, but it has to be hers. So you're going to have to come to Chicago and have a piece, because, I don't know if they can even do that anywhere else. But oh my God, no. So you are speaking truth. I mean, and there's so many people on here, like usually I like to try to take a couple questions, but like 99% of I shouldn't say 99%. There are some good stuff in here, but we got talking and sometimes I miss, but how beautiful you are. Some two guys were just arguing about your hair, which one's prettier. You have been speaking some gospel, my lady. I just heard somebody say that. I mean, you've been preaching, and again, when we first started talking, and I mentioned it about 10 minutes in the conversation, I started to see, okay, this is why she is where she is, and let this be a lesson to everybody. Just re-listen. If you came into the tail end of this, re-listen to this whole conversation, because I mean, really, all the pieces fit into place in terms of, like, if you believe in who you are and what you're doing, and you just keep taking those steps forward and putting your energy into it and having a goal and saying, this is where I want to be, you're going to get there. And as Joy has shared, there's been a lot of slaps along the way and missteps and failures. And we talked about how, that's a part of it. And you're not going to get there overnight. But then, and it's still a journey, right? It's not like you're, okay, I'm good now, everybody, right? It's ABG, always be growing, like that little chart I showed you. We're not happy unless we're growing. So thank you for being on and helping some of our viewers grow and helping me grow. I got some little nuggets out of it as well. I'm always growing. And I shouldn't say this, but not every one of my guests I'm like gets me thinking in new and different ways. And you definitely dropped some bombs in there. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. I try to do my best to try and make the world a better place while also navigating, some trolls and stuff along the way. But I really am passionate about people reaching their full potential. And I don't think there's any, cookie cutter way to do that. And it's really, like, I'm not exactly where I want to be professionally. I have steps to go and things to work on personally, obviously, like I said, but I think everybody has the potential to do whatever it is they want to do. It's just a matter of application and desire and faith. I'm gonna butcher your quote now.
Desire backed by faith.
Desire backed
Napoleon
by
Hill.
faith. Yes.
Google that after this. It's got that word faith in there, which turns a lot of people off, but it has nothing to do with religion. It's Google it.
You have to have
anybody watching.
You have to have
it's sort of like you just believe so wholeheartedly and in yourself, and you know that your strengths line up with your passions on this one, and it's going to happen. And that's really, to me, like, it's very rare to see somebody succeed. And I mean, I might even go as far as to say, I don't know if ever, like, if those two don't line up in terms of actually, they may like temporarily do well or something, or get lucky, or, you're mentioning luck earlier, which I thought we never really got into it, but I was going to talk about how luck is where preparation actually meets opportunity, right? It's like, it's because you've been doing certain things and you've been on that path, and then it's only a matter of time before the stars start to align. It's like, okay, let's go. Versus just, winning the lottery. And there's a reason that show, The Lottery Ruined My Life, exists. These people, when it just falls into your lap, and you haven't done the prep, for sure.
I always say luck favors the prepared.
Absolutely. And if it just falls in your lap and you haven't done the work and you haven't earned it, then you're going to be in a world of trouble. So, like, every step, like I think you mentioned a little while ago about how the 10 year ago you self couldn't even imagine like some of the
No, I would
ways you
fail. I would
think
be terrible. It would be an
doing
embarrassment.
this show.
It would be an
Right.
embarrassment. You have to really love the process of what you do too, which is the one final nugget I'll leave everyone with, because I'm pretty sure my phone's gonna die. But love the process of what you do. Like, really love learning what it is you're doing, because it's just gonna make you better when you do get that opportunity. So luck favors the prepared is the same thing, but like, don't like when you started your business, I don't know, but I'm sure you probably went out and did deliveries and like put labels on stuff and like did every single job. Yeah, you did every single job. And like, I was a producer and a writer, and I answered phones, got coffee and got copies and booked guests, and I still do all those things. Like, it's fine, because it's just going to make you better when you do reach the level that you want to. And also, it will make you appreciate the other people that you work with who now have those jobs as well. So it's really all a process. I don't like to say trust the process, because I don't know if that really worked for Philadelphia, but you really have to enjoy the process. Don't look at it as a chore. Don't look at it as, demeaning. Look at it as you're learning. Look at it as experience, sweat equity, whatever you want to call it. But enjoy it, because it's what I started talking about with you today. I want to enjoy what it is I'm doing, even though I am, going to be doing it repetitively, or it's a long haul, or it's a lot of work. Enjoy it, be in the moment, be here now, and embrace it, because it's just going to make you better at the end of the road anyway. And you want some memories too, right?
Well, yeah, God. So yeah, your phone's going to die. And I mean, I think like 25 minutes ago, I was like, all right, so to wrap it up here, but we're having a fantastic conversation. We could probably do this for 5 more hours. Thank you so much, Joy, for being on. Thanks for everybody listening. I'm sorry we didn't get to a ton of comments today, but we were really just going back and forth. You were just dropping some great wisdom. So hopefully, if you guys missed it, be sure I am saving it. You can go back and listen to it. Podcast. Where can people see you next? Right, your show. Do you have a website? Do you have anything you want to promote?
Yeah, I have a couple of things coming up for football season. I can't announce yet, but will be announced this week. So you can check it out on my website, joytaylormedia.com, or follow me on social media at joytaylortalks. And you can watch The Herd, noon to 3 weekdays, noon to 3 Eastern weekdays on FS1.
Well, thank you, and hopefully we'll keep in touch. We're kindred spirits, and I.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
All right, Joy. Thanks. Take care.
That's it for the 5 Core Life. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like button on this video and pound that subscribe button so you get notified when new episodes drop. Also, please fill out the free 5 Core Life Evaluator quiz. It's a great way to get a baseline of where you are in the 5 cores and which of the 5 cores you need support. In addition, you'll get some actionable advice that you can apply and start improving your life in the areas that you need it most. That's it for today's episode of the 5 Core Life Podcast. Have a wonderful day.
Get moving. Gain momentum. Join the movement. Join Emmett by going to moremomentum.com to take a free life evaluator quiz on where you currently stand in each of your 5 cores.